Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that a cybersecurity analyst has discovered a critical zero-day vulnerability in a core network service that, if exploited, could lead to a widespread denial-of-service attack impacting customer operations. The analyst has the technical expertise to develop and deploy a patch immediately, but doing so would bypass the standard change control and incident response procedures. What is the most appropriate course of action for the cybersecurity analyst? Option A. Document the vulnerability thoroughly and report it through the established incident response channels for assessment and authorized remediation. Option B. Assess the likelihood of exploitation, and if deemed low, monitor the system without immediate action to avoid disrupting standard operational procedures. Option C. Disclose the vulnerability to a trusted third-party security researcher for independent verification and guidance on remediation. Option D. Immediately develop and deploy a patch to mitigate the vulnerability, prioritizing system availability over procedural adherence. The correct answer is D. Immediately develop and deploy a patch to mitigate the vulnerability, prioritizing system availability over procedural adherence. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in cybersecurity where a security professional discovers a vulnerability that, if exploited, could cause significant disruption, but also offers a potential for rapid, albeit unauthorized, remediation. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for security with established protocols and legal/regulatory frameworks. The pressure to act quickly to prevent harm must be weighed against the risks of unauthorized actions, which could lead to legal repercussions, loss of trust, and unintended consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established incident response plan and regulatory guidelines. This means documenting the vulnerability, reporting it through the designated channels, and allowing the authorized teams to assess and remediate it. This aligns with the principles of responsible disclosure and adherence to organizational policy, which are often mandated or strongly implied by cybersecurity regulations and best practices. For example, in the U.S., frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework and specific regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data or SOX for financial data emphasize documented processes, reporting, and authorized remediation to ensure accountability and minimize broader risks. This approach ensures that any remediation is performed by individuals with the proper authority and expertise, minimizing the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities or violating compliance requirements. Incorrect approach is analysis. Taking immediate, unauthorized action to patch the vulnerability, even with good intentions, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It bypasses established change management processes, potentially introduces instability into critical systems, and could violate contractual obligations or regulatory requirements regarding system integrity and authorized modifications. This action could be seen as unauthorized access or tampering, leading to legal penalties and disciplinary action. Reporting the vulnerability to external parties without following the organization's disclosure policy is also a failure. This could violate non-disclosure agreements, compromise sensitive information, and potentially trigger a wider security incident than initially anticipated. It undermines the organization's ability to manage the disclosure responsibly and could lead to reputational damage and legal liabilities. Ignoring the vulnerability due to its perceived low impact or complexity is a failure to uphold professional duty. Cybersecurity professionals have an ethical obligation to identify and report potential threats, regardless of their immediate perceived severity. This inaction could lead to a significant security breach down the line, with severe consequences for the organization and its stakeholders, and would be a clear violation of due diligence requirements under most regulatory frameworks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should follow a structured decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to policy and regulation. This involves 1. Identification and documentation. Clearly identify and document the discovered vulnerability. 2. Reporting. Immediately report the vulnerability through the organization's established incident response and reporting channels. 3. Escalation. Allow the designated incident response team or security leadership to assess the risk and determine the appropriate course of action. 4. Remediation. Support the authorized remediation efforts, ensuring that all actions are documented and comply with organizational policies and relevant regulations. This systematic approach ensures accountability, minimizes risk, and upholds professional integrity. Question 2. Compliance review shows that following a recent network intrusion, the security operations team implemented several rapid remediation steps. Which of the following approaches best aligns with established security, best practices, and regulatory expectations for incident response and recovery? Option A. Temporarily disabling security logging on affected systems to expedite the restoration process. Option B. Restoring affected systems from available backups without performing a full security scan of the backup data. Option C. Following a documented incident response plan that includes containment, eradication, and secure recovery with verification. Option D. Implementing temporary, unvetted firewall rule changes to isolate compromised segments. The correct answer is A. Temporarily disabling security logging on affected systems to expedite the restoration process. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations, balancing the need for efficient troubleshooting and incident response with the imperative to maintain robust security posture and adhere to compliance mandates. The pressure to quickly restore service after a security event can lead to shortcuts that inadvertently weaken security controls or violate established policies. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to ensure that remediation efforts are both effective and compliant, avoiding actions that could exacerbate the security risk or lead to regulatory penalties. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, documented process that prioritizes security during remediation. This aligns with best practices for incident response and security operations, emphasizing the need to contain, eradicate, and recover, while preserving evidence and ensuring that security controls are not compromised. Following established incident response playbooks, which are typically designed with compliance in mind, ensures that all necessary steps are taken in a controlled manner. This includes thorough analysis of the root cause, implementation of corrective actions, and verification that security measures are restored to an acceptable baseline. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of reinfection or further compromise and demonstrates due diligence in meeting security objectives and regulatory requirements. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing temporary, unvetted firewall rule changes without proper review or documentation is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such actions bypass established change management processes, which are critical for maintaining security and auditability. This can lead to unintended security gaps, making the network vulnerable to further attacks or misconfigurations that violate security policies. It also hinders effective incident investigation and forensic analysis by introducing undocumented changes to the network state. Disabling security logging on affected systems to reduce the perceived burden of data collection during an incident is another critical failure. Logging is a fundamental requirement for security monitoring, threat detection, and forensic investigation. Disabling logs not only impedes the ability to understand the scope and nature of the incident, but also directly violates compliance mandates that require comprehensive audit trails. This action creates an information vacuum, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance or to effectively respond to future security events. Restoring systems from unverified backups without a thorough security assessment is a dangerous shortcut. Backups themselves can be compromised, or the malware responsible for the incident might be present in the backup data. Restoring from such backups without scanning and validating the integrity of the data can lead to reinfection of the network, negating the remediation efforts and potentially spreading the threat further. This approach fails to address the root cause and risks reintroducing the very vulnerability that caused the incident, violating the principle of secure recovery. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach security incidents with a structured incident response plan. This plan should outline clear steps for containment, eradication, recovery, and post-incident analysis, all while adhering to organizational policies and relevant regulatory frameworks. Key decision-making points include assessing the impact and scope of the incident, prioritizing actions based on risk and compliance requirements, ensuring all changes are documented and approved, and verifying the effectiveness of remediation efforts. The process should always prioritize maintaining or enhancing the security posture, even under pressure. When in doubt, consult with security leadership and legal/compliance teams to ensure decisions align with organizational policies and regulatory obligations. Question 3. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly struggling to balance the rapid deployment of new secure access solutions with the need for robust, ongoing operational efficiency and security posture maintenance. Considering the inherent complexities of enterprise networks and the dynamic threat landscape, which of the following approaches best optimizes the process of implementing and managing Cisco secure access solutions? Option A. Implement the secure access solution in a phased, iterative manner, incorporating continuous monitoring, performance tuning, and user feedback loops to refine the deployment and ongoing management processes. Option B. Prioritize the fastest possible deployment of the entire secure access solution across all network segments simultaneously to achieve immediate security coverage. Option C. Expedite the deployment process by minimizing pre-implementation testing and validation to meet aggressive project timelines. Option D. Focus exclusively on the initial deployment of the secure access solution, deferring any significant monitoring or feedback collection until after the solution has been fully implemented. The correct answer is A. Implement the secure access solution in a phased, iterative manner, incorporating continuous monitoring, performance tuning, and user feedback loops to refine the deployment and ongoing management processes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a secure access solution within a large enterprise presents significant challenges due to the complexity of existing infrastructure, diverse user needs, and the constant evolution of threat landscapes. Optimizing the process of deploying and managing these solutions is crucial for maintaining security posture, minimizing operational overhead, and ensuring business continuity. A poorly optimized process can lead to security gaps, increased downtime, and inefficient resource allocation, all of which carry substantial financial and reputational risks. The need for a structured, iterative, and data-driven approach is paramount to navigate these complexities effectively. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, iterative deployment strategy coupled with continuous monitoring and feedback loops. This aligns with best practices in IT project management and cybersecurity frameworks, such as NIST Cybersecurity Framework. A phased approach allows for granular testing and validation at each stage, reducing the risk of widespread disruption. Continuous monitoring provides real-time insights into the solution's performance and security effectiveness, enabling prompt identification and remediation of issues. Incorporating feedback from end users and IT operations teams ensures that the solution is not only secure, but also practical and user-friendly, leading to higher adoption rates and reduced support burdens. This iterative refinement process is essential for adapting to changing business requirements and emerging threats, representing a mature and professional approach to process optimization in a dynamic environment. Incorrect approach is analysis. A big bang deployment, where the entire solution is rolled out simultaneously, is highly risky. It offers no opportunity for staged validation and can lead to catastrophic failures if unforeseen issues arise, potentially compromising the entire network's security and disrupting critical business operations. This approach disregards the principle of minimizing risk and is professionally unacceptable due to its inherent instability. Focusing solely on initial deployment without establishing robust monitoring and feedback mechanisms is another flawed strategy. This leads to a static security posture that cannot adapt to evolving threats or user needs. Without ongoing evaluation, security vulnerabilities may go undetected, and the solution may become inefficient or ineffective over time, representing a failure to maintain a proactive security stance. Prioritizing speed of deployment over thorough testing and validation is also professionally unsound. While time to market is important, compromising security for speed creates significant vulnerabilities. This approach neglects the fundamental responsibility of ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of data, leading to potential breaches and regulatory noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, iterative approach to process optimization. This involves breaking down complex implementations into manageable phases, conducting thorough testing and validation at each stage, and establishing continuous monitoring and feedback mechanisms. Prioritizing security and operational effectiveness over speed, and ensuring alignment with business objectives and regulatory requirements are key tenets of professional decision-making in this domain. A structured approach, informed by data and user feedback, allows for informed adjustments and continuous improvement, ultimately leading to a more resilient and effective secure access solution. Question 4. Implementation of a secure access solution for a U.S.-based financial services firm is underway. The primary objective is to protect sensitive customer financial data while ensuring authorized personnel can access necessary resources efficiently. The firm operates under strict U.S. regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and security, which approach best aligns with these requirements and best professional practices. Option A. Select a solution that incorporates multi-factor authentication, granular access controls, and comprehensive logging, following a thorough risk assessment aligned with GLBA requirements. Option B. Prioritize the solution with the most advanced, cutting-edge security features, regardless of implementation complexity or specific risk mitigation needs. Option C. Implement a solution based on industry trends and competitor adoption, without conducting an independent risk assessment or considering specific regulatory mandates. Option D. Choose the solution with the lowest upfront cost, assuming that basic security functionalities are sufficient for regulatory compliance. Correct answer is A. Select a solution that incorporates multi-factor authentication, granular access controls, and comprehensive logging, following a thorough risk assessment aligned with GLBA requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a secure access solution for a financial services firm presents significant challenges due to the highly sensitive nature of the data handled and the stringent regulatory environment. The firm must balance robust security measures with the need for efficient access for employees and authorized third parties. A failure in secure access can lead to severe financial losses, reputational damage, and significant regulatory penalties. The challenge lies in selecting and implementing a solution that meets these complex requirements without introducing new vulnerabilities or hindering legitimate business operations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment aligned with the firm's specific business needs and regulatory obligations. This involves identifying critical assets, potential threats, and vulnerabilities, and then selecting a solution that mitigates these risks effectively. For a financial services firm, this would include adherence to regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA in the U.S., which mandates the protection of customer financial information. A solution that incorporates multi-factor authentication, MFA, granular access controls, and robust logging and monitoring capabilities directly addresses these requirements by ensuring only authorized individuals can access sensitive data and that all access is auditable. This proactive, risk-based approach is best professional practice as it is directly tied to regulatory compliance and business continuity. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a solution based solely on the latest technology trends without a thorough risk assessment is a regulatory and ethical failure. This approach ignores the specific context of the financial firm, potentially leading to over-provisioning of security, costly and inefficient, or under-provisioning, leaving critical assets exposed. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in protecting customer data, as required by regulations like GLBA. Choosing a solution based on the lowest cost without considering its security efficacy or compliance features is another significant failure. This prioritizes financial savings over security and regulatory adherence, directly contravening the spirit and letter of regulations designed to protect sensitive financial information. Such a decision can lead to a false sense of security while leaving the firm vulnerable to breaches, resulting in severe financial and legal repercussions. Adopting a solution that offers extensive features but is overly complex for the IT team to manage effectively is also problematic. While seemingly secure, poor implementation and ongoing management due to complexity can introduce vulnerabilities. This lack of operational readiness can lead to misconfigurations, missed alerts, and ultimately, security gaps, failing to meet the ongoing duty of care mandated by regulatory frameworks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based decision-making process. This begins with understanding the business context and all applicable regulatory requirements, e.g., GLBA for U.S. financial institutions. A thorough risk assessment should then identify specific threats and vulnerabilities. Solution selection should be driven by how well potential options address these identified risks and meet compliance mandates, rather than solely by cost, feature set, or perceived technological superiority. Continuous evaluation and adaptation are crucial to maintain an effective and compliant secure access posture. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that the implementation of new, more granular access control policies is causing a significant performance degradation, impacting user productivity across critical business units. The security team has confirmed that these policies are necessary to address a known vulnerability. What is the most appropriate next step to balance security requirements with operational needs? Option A. Deploy the new access control policies across the entire organization without delay to ensure immediate remediation of the identified security vulnerability, accepting the performance impact. Option B. Immediately disable the new access control policies across all business units to restore user productivity and revisit security measures at a later, unspecified time. Option C. Implement the new access control policies only for a small, non-critical department to observe their impact in a controlled environment, while leaving core business units unaffected. Option D. Initiate a pilot program with a subset of users and systems to test the new access control policies, gather performance data, and refine configurations before a full rollout. Correct answer is D. Initiate a pilot program with a subset of users and systems to test the new access control policies, gather performance data, and refine configurations before a full rollout. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of users and the potential for disruption. The efficiency study highlights a performance bottleneck directly impacting user productivity, which can lead to frustration, workarounds that bypass security, and ultimately, a reduction in overall business effectiveness. The challenge lies in identifying a solution that addresses the security vulnerability without creating an unacceptable user experience or introducing new risks. This requires a nuanced understanding of both the technical implications of security measures and their impact on the human element of the organization. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of security controls, starting with a pilot program. This methodology aligns with best practices for managing change in complex IT environments and is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that emphasize risk management and due diligence. By piloting the new access control policies on a subset of users or systems, the security team can gather real-world data on performance impact, identify unforeseen issues, and refine the configuration before a full rollout. This iterative process allows for adjustments based on feedback and observed behavior, minimizing disruption and ensuring the security solution is both effective and practical. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible implementation, a key tenet in maintaining compliance with security standards and organizational policies. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the new access control policies immediately across the entire organization without prior testing or a pilot program is a direct violation of prudent risk management principles. This approach ignores the potential for widespread disruption, which could lead to significant operational downtime and a failure to meet service-level agreements, potentially contravening business continuity requirements. It also fails to account for user impact, increasing the likelihood of users finding insecure workarounds, thereby undermining the very security objectives the policy aims to achieve. Such a hasty deployment could be seen as a failure of due diligence, a critical component of many security regulations and compliance frameworks. Implementing the access control policies only for a small, non-critical department, while ignoring the core business units, where the efficiency study identified the bottleneck, is ineffective. While it might seem like a low-risk initial step, it fails to address the primary problem identified by the study. This approach does not provide a comprehensive solution and leaves the organization vulnerable in its most critical areas. It also fails to demonstrate a commitment to improving overall security posture and operational efficiency, which could be a point of concern for auditors or regulatory bodies assessing the organization's security maturity. Disabling the new access control policies altogether due to the efficiency study's findings without proposing an alternative or further investigation is a failure to address an identified security vulnerability. While user productivity is important, security cannot be sacrificed entirely. This approach abandons the security objective without a valid justification or a plan to mitigate the identified risk. It suggests a lack of commitment to security best practices and could leave the organization exposed to threats, potentially leading to breaches that have significant regulatory and financial consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment, impact analysis, and phased implementation. When faced with a conflict between security requirements and operational efficiency, the process should involve 1. Understanding the specific security vulnerability and its potential impact. 2. Quantifying the operational impact of the proposed security control. 3. Exploring alternative security controls or configurations that offer a better balance. 4. Developing a phased rollout plan, including pilot testing and user feedback mechanisms. 5. Establishing clear communication channels with stakeholders, including end users and management. 6. Continuously monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness and impact of implemented controls. This systematic approach ensures that security decisions are informed, justifiable, and aligned with both organizational objectives and regulatory expectations. Question 6. The audit findings indicate that access to the organization's sensitive financial data repositories is not adequately segmented based on user roles and device compliance, creating a potential security vulnerability. Which of the following approaches best addresses this finding while adhering to stringent data protection regulations? Option A. Grant all users who have a stated business need for financial data read-only access to all repositories. Option B. Enhance the perimeter firewall rules to include specific ports and protocols associated with financial data access. Option C. Implement Cisco Identity Services Engine eyes to enforce dynamic access policies based on user identity, device posture, and contextual information, granting access only to authorized users on compliant devices. Option D. Block all remote access to the financial data repositories until a comprehensive review of all remote user roles can be completed. Correct answer is C. Implement Cisco Identity Services Engine eyes to enforce dynamic access policies based on user identity, device posture, and contextual information, granting access only to authorized users on compliant devices. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential gap in the organization's ability to enforce granular access controls based on user roles and device posture, specifically concerning access to sensitive financial data. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing security requirements with business operational needs, ensuring that legitimate users can access necessary resources while preventing unauthorized access. The challenge is amplified by the need to comply with the specific regulatory framework relevant to the exam's jurisdiction, which likely mandates robust data protection and access control mechanisms. The correct approach involves implementing a solution that leverages Cisco Identity Services Engine eyes to dynamically assign security policies based on user identity, device health, and contextual information. This aligns with best practices for secure access and is likely mandated by regulations that require least privilege access and continuous monitoring of endpoint security posture. By using ISC, the organization can enforce granular access controls, ensuring that only authorized users on compliant devices can access sensitive financial data, thereby mitigating the risk of data breaches and regulatory noncompliance. This approach represents best professional practice because it proactively addresses identified vulnerabilities and implements a scalable, policy-driven security framework. An incorrect approach would be to simply block all access to sensitive financial data for all remote users, regardless of their role or device status. This fails to meet business operational needs and would likely lead to significant disruption. From a regulatory perspective, this approach is flawed because it is overly restrictive and does not demonstrate a nuanced understanding of risk-based access control, which is often a requirement. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on perimeter security measures, such as a firewall, to protect the financial data. While perimeter security is important, it is insufficient on its own to protect against insider threats or compromised internal devices. Regulations often require defense-in-depth strategies, and relying only on the perimeter would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it does not adequately protect sensitive data from internal or advanced persistent threats. A third incorrect approach would be to grant broad access to all users who claim to need it, without proper verification or policy enforcement. This is a direct violation of the principle of least privilege and would expose the organization to significant security risks and regulatory penalties. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to implement effective access control mechanisms as likely required by the relevant regulatory framework. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment, regulatory compliance, and business enablement. This involves understanding the specific requirements of the applicable regulatory framework, identifying critical assets, assessing potential threats and vulnerabilities, and then selecting security solutions that effectively mitigate those risks while allowing for necessary business operations. The process should involve a thorough evaluation of available technologies and their ability to enforce policy dynamically and contextually. Question 7. Process analysis reveals that the recent implementation of a new remote access VPN solution has led to a significant increase in support tickets and a noticeable decrease in productivity for a key business unit. Users report difficulties connecting, slow performance, and confusion regarding authentication procedures, impacting their ability to perform daily tasks. The security team is tasked with addressing this situation while maintaining the integrity of the new security controls. Which of the following approaches best addresses this professionally challenging scenario? Option A. Immediately roll back the VPN implementation to the previous solution to restore productivity, deferring any security enhancements until a later, less disruptive time. Option B. Prioritize technical troubleshooting of the VPN infrastructure and server logs to identify and resolve any underlying network or configuration errors, assuming user issues are primarily due to a lack of technical understanding. Option C. Instruct the affected business unit to adhere strictly to the existing VPN documentation and provide additional user training on the new authentication procedures without further investigation into performance or usability issues. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment focused on the affected business unit, quantifying productivity losses, identifying root causes of user difficulties, and evaluating security implications of potential solutions. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment focused on the affected business unit, quantifying productivity losses, identifying root causes of user difficulties, and evaluating security implications of potential solutions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing robust security controls with operational efficiency and user experience. The introduction of a new remote access VPN solution, while intended to enhance security, has inadvertently created significant friction for a critical business unit. This friction, manifesting as increased support tickets and reduced productivity, highlights the potential for security initiatives to negatively impact business operations if not carefully managed. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the user dissatisfaction and its impact on business continuity, while still upholding the security objectives of the new VPN. This requires a nuanced understanding of both technical implementation and business process impact. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough impact assessment specifically focused on the affected business unit. This assessment should quantify the productivity losses, analyze the root causes of user difficulties, e.g., usability issues, performance bottlenecks, inadequate training, and evaluate the security implications of any proposed workarounds. By engaging directly with the affected users and stakeholders, the security team can gather precise data to inform their decisions. This data-driven approach allows for the development of targeted solutions that address the specific pain points without compromising the overall security posture. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing a holistic view that integrates security with business needs, ensuring that security solutions are both effective and sustainable. It also implicitly adheres to principles of risk management, where understanding the impact of a control is crucial for its successful deployment and ongoing effectiveness. Incorrect approaches analysis. Ignoring the reported issues and attributing them solely to user resistance represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for user feedback and a lack of due diligence in assessing the real-world impact of security controls. This approach can lead to the circumvention of security policies, creating unmanaged risks and potentially violating compliance requirements that mandate effective and usable security measures. Implementing a blanket rollback of the VPN solution without a proper impact assessment is also professionally unacceptable. This hasty decision bypasses the opportunity to understand the specific technical or usability flaws that led to the issues. It risks undoing security improvements and reintroducing vulnerabilities that the VPN was designed to mitigate. Ethically, it fails to address the underlying problems and may lead to a cycle of reactive, rather than proactive, security management. Focusing solely on technical troubleshooting of the VPN infrastructure without considering the user experience and business workflow is another flawed approach. While technical issues may exist, the core problem appears to be the integration of the VPN into the daily operations of the business unit. This narrow focus misses the broader impact on productivity and user adoption, failing to address the root cause of the increased support tickets and decreased efficiency. It can lead to a technically sound but operationally ineffective security solution. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a scenario should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, acknowledge and validate user feedback as a critical data point. Second, initiate a formal impact assessment that quantifies the business impact, productivity, operational efficiency, and identifies the specific technical and usability challenges. Third, engage in collaborative problem-solving with the affected business unit to understand their workflows and requirements. Fourth, based on the assessment, develop and propose solutions that balance security objectives with operational needs, which might include user training, configuration adjustments, or even phased rollouts. Finally, document the entire process, the findings, the decisions made, and the rationale behind them to ensure accountability and continuous improvement. Question 8. Investigation of a critical unpatched vulnerability discovered in a core network device raises concerns about potential unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. The security team has identified the vulnerability and confirmed its exploitability. The organization is subject to stringent data protection regulations. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to regulatory requirements and minimizing operational disruption? Option A. Immediately disconnect all network devices exhibiting the vulnerability to prevent any potential access, regardless of operational impact. Option B. Rely on existing perimeter security measures to mitigate the risk, assuming the vulnerability is unlikely to be exploited in the current threat landscape. Option C. Defer patching the vulnerability until the next scheduled quarterly maintenance window to avoid disrupting ongoing business operations. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to determine the criticality of affected systems and data. Then prioritize and schedule remediation based on the assessed risk. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to determine the criticality of affected systems and data, then prioritize and schedule remediation based on the assessed risk. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing the need for robust security with operational efficiency and user experience. The organization is facing a potential security breach due to an unpatched vulnerability, which directly impacts the confidentiality and integrity of sensitive data. The urgency of the situation, coupled with the potential for significant business disruption and regulatory penalties, necessitates a swift and effective response. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that not only mitigates the immediate risk, but also aligns with established security, best practices, and regulatory compliance frameworks relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that prioritizes the remediation of the identified vulnerability based on its potential severity and the criticality of the affected systems. This aligns with the principles of risk management and incident response, which are fundamental to implementing secure access solutions. A thorough impact assessment allows for a data-driven decision on the urgency and scope of the remediation efforts. This approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant threats first, minimizing the likelihood of a successful exploit and its consequences. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing data protection and cybersecurity, often mandate such risk-based approaches to security incident management, requiring organizations to demonstrate due diligence in protecting sensitive information. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves delaying remediation until a scheduled maintenance window. This fails to acknowledge the immediate threat posed by the unpatched vulnerability. Regulatory requirements often mandate timely patching of known vulnerabilities to prevent breaches, and a significant delay could be interpreted as negligence, leading to substantial fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to immediately disconnect all affected systems without a proper impact assessment. While this might seem like a drastic but safe measure, it can lead to severe operational disruption, impacting business continuity and potentially violating service-level agreements. This reactive, blanket approach lacks the strategic foresight required for effective risk management and can be more damaging than the initial vulnerability. A third incorrect approach is to ignore the vulnerability due to the perceived low likelihood of exploitation. This demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of threat landscapes and the principle of defense in depth. Even low-likelihood threats can have catastrophic consequences, and regulatory bodies expect organizations to proactively address known risks, not wait for an incident to occur. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured risk management framework. This involves identifying assets, threats, and vulnerabilities, assessing the likelihood and impact of potential incidents, and implementing appropriate controls. In situations involving unpatched vulnerabilities, the process should include 1. Immediate identification and verification of the vulnerability. 2. Assessment of the impact on critical systems and data. 3. Prioritization of remediation based on risk. 4. Implementation of the remediation plan. And 5. Verification of the fix and post-incident review. This systematic approach ensures that security measures are proportionate to the risks faced and that compliance with relevant regulations is maintained. Question 9. What factors determine the most appropriate secure remote access VPN solution for an organization operating under U.S. regulatory frameworks, considering both robust security and operational efficiency? Option A. The VPN solution that is most familiar to the IT team, even if it predates current security best practices and lacks comprehensive logging capabilities. Option B. The VPN solution's brand reputation and the lowest upfront licensing cost, regardless of specific security features or integration complexity. Option C. The VPN solution that offers the widest array of advanced features, even if it requires significant specialized training for the IT staff and has limited integration options. Option D. The VPN solution's adherence to NIST guidelines for encryption and authentication, its integration capabilities with existing identity management systems, and its scalability to accommodate a growing remote workforce. The correct answer is D. The VPN solution's adherence to NIST guidelines for encryption and authentication, its integration capabilities with existing identity management systems, and its scalability to accommodate a growing remote workforce. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing robust security with user productivity and operational efficiency. The organization is experiencing a surge in remote work, necessitating a scalable and secure VPN solution. The challenge lies in selecting a VPN technology that not only meets stringent security requirements, but also integrates seamlessly with existing infrastructure, provides a positive user experience, and adheres to relevant U.S. regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and security. The pressure to deploy quickly without compromising security or user adoption adds a layer of complexity, demanding careful consideration of technical capabilities, cost-effectiveness, and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation of VPN solutions based on their ability to meet specific security mandates, such as those outlined by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, guidelines, which are foundational for U.S. federal agencies and widely adopted by private sector organizations. This includes assessing the VPN support for strong encryption protocols, e.g., AES 256, robust authentication mechanisms, e.g., multi-factor authentication integration, and its capacity to enforce granular access controls. Furthermore, the chosen solution must demonstrate compliance with data privacy regulations like HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, if health information is handled, or PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, if financial data is processed. A solution that offers centralized management, logging, and reporting capabilities is crucial for auditing and incident response, aligning with requirements for maintaining secure systems and demonstrating due diligence. The ability to scale with the growing remote workforce and integrate with existing identity management systems, like Active Directory, ensures operational continuity and a smoother user experience, which are critical for successful adoption and long-term effectiveness. Incorrect approach is analysis. Prioritizing solely on the lowest initial cost without a thorough security and compliance assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks deploying a solution that is either insecure, leading to potential data breaches and violations of regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, or lacks the necessary features for compliance, resulting in fines and reputational damage. Selecting a VPN solution based on brand recognition or familiarity alone, without verifying its technical capabilities against current security standards and specific organizational needs, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to a solution that is not adequately protected against emerging threats or does not meet the specific requirements of U.S. data protection laws, such as those enforced by the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, regarding unfair or deceptive practices related to data security. Opting for a solution that offers extensive features but is overly complex to configure and manage, without considering the IT team's expertise and available resources, can lead to misconfigurations and security vulnerabilities. This indirectly violates the principle of maintaining a secure environment as mandated by various U.S. cybersecurity frameworks, as a poorly managed system is inherently less secure. It also fails to consider the practical aspects of operational efficiency and user support, which are essential for a successful security implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a clear understanding of the organization's data assets, regulatory obligations, e.g., NIST, HIPAA, CCPA, and threat landscape. This involves defining specific security and compliance requirements before evaluating potential solutions. A thorough technical assessment should then be conducted, focusing on the VPN's encryption strength, authentication capabilities, access control granularity, and logging features. Integration with existing infrastructure and scalability for future growth are also key considerations. User experience and administrative overhead should be evaluated to ensure practical deployment and ongoing management. Finally, a cost-benefit analysis that includes the total cost of ownership, including implementation, training, and ongoing maintenance, should be performed, always prioritizing security and compliance over short-term cost savings. Question 10. When evaluating the implementation of a secure access solution for a corporate network that requires granular control over user and device access to different network segments based on their role and security posture, which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of least privilege and dynamic policy enforcement as emphasized in secure access best practices? Option A. Relying on perimeter firewalls to segment the network and granting all internal users full access to all internal resources once authenticated. Option B. Implementing a policy that dynamically assigns users and devices to specific VLAN and applies access control lists, ACL, based on their authenticated identity, device compliance status, and the time of day. Option C. Configuring static VLAN assignments for different departments and applying broad network access permissions to all authenticated users within those VLAN. Option D. Implementing a policy that grants all users full network access by default and only restricts access to specific resources upon explicit user request and approval. The correct answer is B. Implementing a policy that dynamically assigns users and devices to specific VLAN and applies access control lists, ACL, based on their authenticated identity, device compliance status, and the time of day. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing robust security controls with user productivity and access needs. The professional must navigate the complexities of implementing a secure access solution that adheres to Cisco's best practices for secure access, as outlined in the 300-208 Implementing Cisco Secure Access Solutions exam syllabus, while also considering the practical implications for end users and the organization's operational requirements. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method for segmenting network access based on user roles and device posture, ensuring that sensitive resources are protected without unduly hindering legitimate business operations. The correct approach involves a layered security strategy that leverages Cisco's Identity Services Engine (ISE) to enforce granular access policies. This method is best professional practice because it directly aligns with the principles of zero trust and least privilege, which are fundamental to modern secure access solutions. By dynamically assigning security policies based on user identity, device health, and contextual information, ISC enables the implementation of highly specific access controls. This ensures that only authorized users on compliant devices can access specific network segments and resources, thereby minimizing the attack surface and the potential impact of a security breach. This aligns with the exam's focus on implementing secure access solutions that are both effective and manageable. An incorrect approach that relies solely on static VLAN assignments without dynamic policy enforcement is professionally unacceptable. This method fails to adapt to changing user roles, device states, or threat landscapes, leaving the network vulnerable. It represents a regulatory failure by not implementing controls commensurate with the risk, and an ethical failure by not adequately protecting organizational assets. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes user convenience over security, such as granting broad network access to all users regardless of their role or device posture, is a significant security and regulatory lapse. This directly contravenes the principles of secure access and exposes the organization to unacceptable risks, potentially leading to data breaches and noncompliance with security standards. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the organization's security policies, compliance requirements, and business needs. They should then leverage their knowledge of secure access technologies, such as Cisco ISC, to design a solution that enforces granular access controls based on identity, device posture, and context. The decision-making process should prioritize a risk-based approach, ensuring that the most sensitive resources are protected by the strongest controls, while still allowing for efficient and secure access for legitimate users. Continuous monitoring and policy refinement are also crucial components of a mature secure access strategy. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals a significant increase in unauthorized access attempts to sensitive customer data repositories. Considering the need to enhance security while maintaining operational continuity and adhering to U.S. regulatory frameworks for data protection, which of the following strategies would be the most effective and professionally sound approach to mitigate these risks? Option A. Immediately block all external network access to the customer data repositories and require all access requests to be manually approved by senior management on a case-by-case basis. Option B. Implement a comprehensive access control strategy that includes role-based access control (RBAC) and attribute-based access control (ABAC) for granular permissions, coupled with continuous monitoring of access logs for anomalous activity and prompt incident response. Option C. Deploy a single, broad security policy that grants all authenticated users read-only access to all customer data to simplify management and ensure everyone can access what they might need. Option D. Focus solely on deploying advanced intrusion detection systems, IDs, at the network perimeter and rely on post-incident forensic analysis to identify and address unauthorized access. Correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive access control strategy that includes role-based access control (RBAC) and attribute-based access control (ABAC) for granular permissions, coupled with continuous monitoring of access logs for anomalous activity and prompt incident response. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant increase in unauthorized access attempts to sensitive customer data repositories. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts data confidentiality and integrity, core tenets of information security. The organization must balance the need for robust security controls with maintaining operational efficiency and user access. Careful judgment is required to implement solutions that are effective, compliant with relevant regulations, and do not unduly hinder legitimate business operations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a layered security strategy that aligns with the principles of least privilege and defense in depth. Implementing granular access controls, such as role-based access control (RBAC) and attribute-based access control (ABAC), ensures that users only have access to the data they absolutely need to perform their duties. This directly addresses the unauthorized access attempts by reducing the attack surface. Furthermore, continuous monitoring and auditing of access logs provide visibility into user activity, enabling prompt detection and response to suspicious behavior. This aligns with regulatory requirements for data protection and incident response, such as those found in U.S. data privacy laws that mandate reasonable security measures and breach notification. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on blocking all external access without proper segmentation or exception handling would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge legitimate remote access needs for employees and partners, leading to operational disruption and potential noncompliance with business continuity requirements. It also ignores the possibility of insider threats, as it doesn't differentiate between authorized and unauthorized internal access. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing overly broad access policies without granular controls would also be professionally unacceptable. This would grant excessive privileges to users, increasing the risk of accidental or malicious data exposure and violating the principle of least privilege. Such an approach would likely fall short of the due diligence expected under data protection regulations, which require specific measures to protect sensitive information. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on reactive measures, such as only investigating after a breach has occurred, is professionally deficient. While incident response is crucial, it does not proactively prevent unauthorized access. This reactive stance fails to meet the proactive security obligations mandated by many regulatory frameworks, which emphasize risk assessment and the implementation of preventative controls. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment to identify vulnerabilities and potential threats. This should be followed by the design and implementation of security controls that are proportionate to the identified risks. Regular review and refinement of security policies and controls, informed by monitoring data and evolving threat landscapes, are essential. Collaboration with business units to understand access requirements and ensure that security measures do not impede legitimate operations is also critical. Adherence to relevant regulatory frameworks, such as those governing data privacy and cybersecurity in the United States, should be a guiding principle throughout the process. Question 12. Compliance review shows that the organization's current remote access solution relies on a single username and password for all users, regardless of their access level or the sensitivity of the data they are accessing. The review also highlights a lack of granular access controls, with most users having broad permissions across various network segments. The organization is subject to regulations that mandate appropriate security controls for sensitive data and require the ability to audit access to critical systems. Which of the following approaches best addresses these compliance gaps and enhances the organization's security posture? Option A. Implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, for all remote access. Enforce the principle of least privilege through role-based access control (RBAC) for network resources and establish centralized logging and auditing of all access events. Option B. Mandate that all users change their passwords weekly and implement a VPN with strong encryption, but maintain the current broad access permissions for all users to ensure operational continuity. Option C. Focus solely on implementing a firewall with advanced intrusion prevention capabilities, assuming that strong perimeter security will mitigate the risks of weak internal access controls. Option D. Deploy a single sign-on (SSO) solution that uses only a username and password, and grant all users administrative privileges to simplify access and reduce support overhead. The correct answer is A. Implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, for all remote access, enforce the principle of least privilege through role-based access control (RBAC) for network resources, and establish centralized logging and auditing of all access events. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing robust security controls with user accessibility and operational efficiency, all while adhering to specific regulatory frameworks. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principles of secure access solutions in a way that meets both technical requirements and compliance mandates without introducing undue risk or operational friction. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate authentication and authorization mechanisms that align with the organization's security posture and the specific dictates of the relevant regulatory environment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a layered security model that leverages strong multi-factor authentication for sensitive resources, while employing more streamlined, yet still secure, methods for less critical access. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and risk-based security, ensuring that the most valuable assets are protected with the highest level of assurance. Furthermore, it demonstrates an understanding of how to implement granular access control that can be audited and managed effectively, a key requirement for compliance. This approach is professionally sound as it is adaptable to evolving threats and organizational needs, and it directly addresses the core objectives of implementing secure access solutions, as outlined in the Cisco 300-208 exam syllabus. An incorrect approach that relies solely on a single, weak authentication factor for all access points is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It fails to meet the fundamental security requirements for protecting sensitive data and systems, leaving the organization vulnerable to unauthorized access. This directly contravenes the spirit and often the letter of security regulations that mandate appropriate controls based on data sensitivity and risk. Another incorrect approach that implements overly restrictive access controls for all users, regardless of their role or the resources they need, leads to operational inefficiency and can foster a culture of workarounds that bypass security, ultimately undermining the security posture. This is an ethical failure as it hinders legitimate business operations and can lead to user frustration and security fatigue. A third incorrect approach that neglects to implement any form of centralized logging or auditing of access attempts is also a critical failure. This prevents the organization from detecting and responding to security incidents, and it makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance with audit requirements, which are standard in most regulatory frameworks. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment to identify critical assets and potential threats. This should be followed by a detailed understanding of the applicable regulatory requirements, focusing on specific mandates related to authentication, authorization, and auditing. The next step is to evaluate available technologies and solutions against these requirements, considering factors such as security strength, scalability, manageability, and user experience. Finally, a phased implementation approach with continuous monitoring and refinement is crucial to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of the secure access solution. Question 13. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new granular access control policy using Cisco ISC for network access control offers significant security enhancements, but a full, immediate deployment across all users and network segments presents a high risk of operational disruption. Which approach best balances security objectives with operational continuity and regulatory compliance? Option A. Deploy the most restrictive access control policy immediately across the entire organization to ensure maximum security from day one. Option B. Prioritize the deployment of the most technically advanced security features, even if they require extensive user training and may initially impact productivity. Option C. Rely on users to self-request access to specific resources with minimal administrative oversight to streamline the process. Option D. Implement the granular access control policy in phases, starting with a pilot group of users and a limited network segment, gathering feedback and refining the policy before broader deployment. The correct answer is D. Implement the granular access control policy in phases, starting with a pilot group of users and a limited network segment, gathering feedback and refining the policy before broader deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust access control with the operational realities of user experience and administrative overhead. The professional challenge lies in selecting a solution that not only meets technical security requirements, but also aligns with the organization's risk tolerance, budget, and the practicalities of managing a large user base. A misstep can lead to either an overly restrictive system that hinders productivity and leads to workarounds, or a system that is insecure and exposes the organization to significant risks. The Cisco Secure Access Solutions Exam 300-208 emphasizes practical implementation, meaning the chosen solution must be deployable and manageable within a real-world enterprise environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a phased rollout of a granular access control policy, starting with a pilot group and gradually expanding. This aligns with best practices for implementing significant security changes. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates due diligence in ensuring the security solution is effective and does not unduly disrupt business operations. It allows for iterative refinement based on real-world feedback, minimizing the risk of widespread issues. This methodical approach is crucial for compliance with general data protection principles and internal security policies, which often mandate risk assessment and mitigation before full deployment. It also reflects a responsible approach to managing technological change within an organization. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, restrictive policy across the entire organization without prior testing or user feedback is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It risks violating principles of proportionality and necessity, potentially impacting legitimate business functions and user access without adequate justification. Such an approach could also lead to noncompliance with internal service level agreements or even external regulations that mandate reasonable access for employees to perform their duties. Deploying a solution that relies heavily on user self-management for access requests, without a clear, auditable process and administrative oversight, introduces significant security and compliance risks. This approach can lead to unauthorized access, inconsistent policy enforcement, and a lack of accountability, which are direct contraventions of security best practices and potentially regulatory requirements for access control and audit trails. Focusing solely on the most advanced security features without considering the operational impact or the organization's capacity to manage them is also professionally unsound. This can lead to a system that is technically secure but practically unusable, forcing users to find insecure workarounds, thereby undermining the very security it aims to provide. This demonstrates a failure to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that includes operational and usability factors, which is a cornerstone of responsible security implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such decisions by first conducting a thorough risk assessment that considers technical vulnerabilities, business impact, and user experience. This should be followed by a detailed requirements gathering process involving stakeholders from IT, security, and relevant business units. The implementation strategy should prioritize a phased rollout, starting with a pilot program to validate the solution's effectiveness and usability. Continuous monitoring, feedback collection, and iterative refinement are essential throughout the deployment lifecycle. This systematic and risk-aware approach ensures that security solutions are not only technically sound, but also operationally viable and compliant with relevant regulations and ethical considerations. Question 14. System analysis indicates that a financial services firm is implementing a new customer relationship management (CRM) system containing sensitive client financial data. The firm must ensure that access to this system is secure and compliant with U.S. financial regulations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of secure access implementation in this context? Option A. Grant all employees within the finance department administrative access to the CRM to ensure they can perform their duties without delay. Option B. Deploy strong password policies but allow users to access the CRM from any device, including personal unmanaged laptops, without additional security controls. Option C. Implement multi-factor authentication for all users. Enforce the principle of least privilege through role-based access control (RBAC), and conduct regular access reviews and audits. Option D. Rely solely on network-level firewalls and intrusion detection systems to protect the CRM from external threats, assuming internal users will not pose a risk. The correct answer is C. Implement multi-factor authentication for all users. Enforce the principle of least privilege through role-based access control (RBAC), and conduct regular access reviews and audits. Explanation. Scenario analysis indicates that implementing a secure access solution within a regulated financial institution presents significant challenges. The primary challenge lies in balancing robust security measures with the need for operational efficiency and user accessibility, all while adhering to stringent data privacy and financial regulations. The organization must ensure that access controls prevent unauthorized data disclosure or manipulation, which could lead to severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The complexity arises from the diverse user roles, the sensitive nature of financial data, and the dynamic threat landscape. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a layered security strategy that aligns with the principles of least privilege and defense in depth, as mandated by common regulatory frameworks like those governing financial services in the U.S., e.g., GLBA, SOX. This approach involves granular access control policies, strong authentication mechanisms, and continuous monitoring, all designed to meet compliance requirements and protect sensitive data. By implementing these measures, the organization demonstrates due diligence in safeguarding customer information and maintaining the integrity of its financial operations, thereby mitigating regulatory risks. An incorrect approach that relies solely on perimeter security without addressing internal access controls fails to meet regulatory expectations for data protection. This is a significant ethical and regulatory failure because it leaves internal systems vulnerable to insider threats or compromised credentials, potentially leading to breaches of confidential customer data. Such a failure violates the spirit and letter of regulations requiring comprehensive security measures. Another incorrect approach that grants broad access privileges to a large group of users, even with strong authentication, is also professionally unacceptable. This violates the principle of least privilege, increasing the attack surface and the likelihood of accidental or malicious data misuse. This directly contravenes regulatory mandates for data segregation and access restriction based on job function. Finally, an approach that neglects regular auditing and access reviews creates a blind spot, making it impossible to detect or rectify unauthorized access in a timely manner. This oversight is a direct regulatory failure, as compliance frameworks typically require periodic verification of access rights and security control effectiveness. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment that identifies critical assets and potential threats. This assessment should then inform the selection and implementation of security controls that are proportionate to the identified risks and aligned with relevant regulatory requirements. Continuous evaluation and adaptation of the security posture are crucial, alongside regular training for personnel on security best practices and their responsibilities under relevant regulations. Question 15. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to managing the security implications of employees using their personal mobile devices to access corporate resources. Given the increasing prevalence of bring your own device (BYOD) scenarios, what is the most effective and professionally sound strategy for ensuring secure access to sensitive corporate data from these unmanaged endpoints? Option A. Allow personal mobile devices to access corporate resources without any specific policy or management, relying solely on existing network security measures. Option B. Implement a robust bring your own device (BYOD) policy integrated with a mobile device management (MDM) solution to enforce security controls, manage corporate data, and enable remote data wiping. Option C. Completely block all personal mobile devices from accessing any corporate resources to eliminate potential security risks. Option D. Enforce a simple password requirement on personal mobile devices that access corporate email, with no further management or monitoring. Correct answer is B. Implement a robust bring your own device (BYOD) policy integrated with a mobile device management (MDM) solution to enforce security controls, manage corporate data, and enable remote data wiping. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing robust security controls with user productivity and operational efficiency. Challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential security risks introduced by the widespread adoption of personal mobile devices for business purposes, without unduly hindering legitimate business operations. The organization is facing the risk of data leakage, unauthorized access to sensitive information, and the introduction of malware through these unmanaged endpoints. A key difficulty is the lack of centralized control and visibility over these devices, making traditional security perimeters less effective. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a comprehensive bring your own device (BYOD) policy that is integrated with a robust mobile device management (MDM) solution. This strategy aligns with the principles of implementing secure access solutions by establishing clear guidelines for device usage, security configurations, and data handling. A well-defined BYOD policy, enforced by an MDM, allows for the secure onboarding of personal devices, the enforcement of strong authentication mechanisms, such as multi-factor authentication, the ability to remotely wipe corporate data if a device is lost or stolen, and the segregation of corporate data from personal data. This approach directly addresses the exam's focus on implementing secure access solutions by providing a framework for managing and securing endpoints that are outside the traditional corporate network boundary. It ensures that access to corporate resources is granted only to compliant and secured devices, thereby minimizing the attack surface and protecting sensitive information. This proactive and policy-driven approach is considered best professional practice as it is both effective in mitigating risks and adaptable to evolving mobile technologies. Incorrect approach is analysis. Completely blocking all personal mobile devices from accessing corporate resources is an overly restrictive approach that fails to acknowledge the reality of modern work environments and can lead to significant user dissatisfaction and decreased productivity. While it eliminates the risks associated with unmanaged devices, it does so at the cost of operational efficiency and employee morale, potentially forcing employees to use insecure workarounds. This approach does not demonstrate a nuanced understanding of implementing secure access solutions, which often involves finding a balance between security and usability. Implementing a basic password policy on personal devices without any further management or enforcement mechanisms is insufficient. It provides a minimal layer of security, but does not address critical risks such as data leakage, malware infections, or the inability to respond to security incidents like lost or stolen devices. This approach lacks the necessary controls to ensure secure access and is therefore professionally unacceptable as it leaves the organization vulnerable. Allowing personal mobile devices to access corporate resources without any policy or management, relying solely on the existing network security infrastructure, is a highly risky and professionally negligent approach. This creates significant blind spots in the security posture, as the organization has no visibility or control over the security state of these devices. This directly contradicts the principles of implementing secure access solutions, which require a comprehensive understanding and management of all access points, including mobile devices. This approach is ethically and professionally unacceptable due to the inherent and significant security risks it introduces. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach to security, considering both the potential threats and the operational needs of the organization. When dealing with BYOD, the decision-making process should involve 1. Assessing the sensitivity of the data being accessed by mobile devices. 2. Understanding the types of threats prevalent in the mobile landscape. 3. Evaluating the technical capabilities for managing and securing mobile devices. And 4. Developing clear, enforceable policies that balance security requirements with user experience. The goal is to implement controls that are effective in mitigating risks without creating undue burdens. This involves a continuous cycle of policy review, technology evaluation, and incident response planning. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal that a significant number of users are experiencing intermittent network access disruptions, reporting that their devices are sometimes unable to connect to the corporate network or access specific internal resources. The security team has recently implemented Cisco Identity Services Engine EYES for network access control and posture assessment. The disruptions appear to be random and affect both wired and wireless users. What is the most effective and secure approach to diagnose and resolve these access issues? Option A. Focus solely on general network troubleshooting by checking switch port status, DHCP scopes, and basic IP connectivity, assuming the security solution is functioning correctly. Option B. Immediately disable the Cisco ISE posture assessment feature for all users to determine if it is the cause of the access disruptions, and then re-enable it once access is stable. Option C. Make ad hoc, undocumented changes to the Cisco ISE authentication and authorization policies based on initial user feedback to see if access improves. Option D. Systematically review Cisco ISE logs, including authentication, authorization, and posture assessment events, correlating them with network device logs and user reports to identify policy violations, misconfigurations, or device health issues causing the access problems. The correct answer is D. Systematically review Cisco ISE logs, including authentication, authorization, and posture assessment events, correlating them with network device logs and user reports to identify policy violations, misconfigurations, or device health issues causing the access problems. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing robust security controls with operational efficiency and user accessibility. The The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of intermittent access issues without compromising the security posture established by the Cisco secure access solutions. A hasty or incomplete investigation could lead to either a weakened security posture or continued user disruption, both of which have significant professional and potentially regulatory implications. The need for a systematic, evidence-based approach is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation that prioritizes understanding the observed behavior within the established security framework. This means correlating the reported access issues with specific security policies, device states, and network events. By examining logs from Cisco ISE, Identity Services Engine, and related network devices, the security team can pinpoint whether the access disruptions are a result of policy misconfigurations, device failures, or unexpected interactions between security components. This approach aligns with best practices for incident response and troubleshooting in secure environments, ensuring that any remediation is targeted and effective, thereby maintaining compliance with security mandates and minimizing business impact. Incorrect approaches analysis. Disabling security features without a thorough understanding of their impact is a critical regulatory and ethical failure. For instance, indiscriminately disabling ISE posture assessment or authentication policies to fix access issues bypasses fundamental security controls designed to protect the network from unauthorized access and malware. This directly violates the principle of least privilege and could expose the organization to significant risks, potentially leading to data breaches and noncompliance with data protection regulations. Another incorrect approach is to solely focus on network connectivity without considering the security context. While network issues can cause access problems, in a secure access solution, these problems are often intertwined with security policies. Ignoring ISE logs and focusing only on general network troubleshooting, e.g., checking switch port status or IP address assignments, fails to address the security-specific reasons for access denial or interruption, which is the core function of the implemented solution. This oversight can lead to prolonged downtime and an inability to identify the true cause, which is likely security policy-related. Finally, making broad, undocumented changes to security policies based on anecdotal user reports is highly unprofessional and risky. Security policies must be carefully designed, implemented, and documented. Ad hoc modifications without proper change control and impact analysis can introduce vulnerabilities, create inconsistencies, and make it impossible to audit security configurations effectively. This undermines the integrity of the security system and can lead to compliance failures. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing and managing Cisco secure access solutions must adopt a structured troubleshooting methodology. This involves 1. Clearly defining the problem and its scope. 2. Gathering all relevant data, logs, configurations, user reports. 3. Analyzing the data within the context of the security solution's design and policies. 4. Hypothesizing potential causes. 5. Testing hypotheses systematically. And 6. Implementing and verifying the solution. This process ensures that security is maintained, operational impact is minimized, and all actions are auditable and compliant with organizational policies and relevant regulations. Question 17. Operational review demonstrates that a healthcare organization is experiencing significant delays in patient data access for its remote clinical staff due to complex multi-factor authentication requirements. The IT security team is considering a proposal to simplify access by granting all remote clinical staff broad administrative privileges to the network and all patient databases, arguing that this will improve efficiency and reduce support calls. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation while adhering to U.S. regulatory frameworks for data security and privacy? Option A. Grant all remote clinical staff broad administrative privileges to the network and all patient databases to expedite data access and reduce operational friction. Option B. Implement access controls based solely on user requests from clinical staff without further validation, prioritizing user convenience over security. Option C. Conduct a detailed risk assessment to identify critical data and implement granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, leveraging Cisco ISE to enforce context-aware access policies for remote clinical staff. Option D. Immediately disable all multi-factor authentication requirements for remote clinical staff to streamline access and eliminate user complaints. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed risk assessment to identify critical data and implement granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, leveraging Cisco ISE to enforce context-aware access policies for remote clinical staff. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing robust security controls with the practical need for user access and operational efficiency. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulatory framework, which in the context of the 300-208 exam implies adherence to U.S. federal regulations governing data security and privacy, such as HIPAA, NIST guidelines, and potentially PCI DSS if payment card data is involved. The difficulty arises from the need to ensure that security measures, while effective, do not create undue burdens that hinder legitimate business operations or violate user privacy rights. A nuanced understanding of risk assessment and the principle of least privilege is critical. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment to identify critical assets and sensitive data, followed by the implementation of granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege. This aligns with the core tenets of U.S. data protection regulations, which mandate that organizations protect sensitive information from unauthorized access and disclosure. Specifically, NIST SB 800-53, a foundational document for U.S. federal information security, emphasizes the importance of access control policies and mechanisms. By granting users only the minimum permissions necessary to perform their job functions, the organization minimizes the attack surface and reduces the likelihood of data breaches. This approach is also ethically sound, as it respects user privacy and data confidentiality. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing overly broad access controls that grant all users administrative privileges is a direct violation of the principle of least privilege, and significantly increases the risk of unauthorized access and data compromise. This approach fails to meet the security requirements mandated by regulations like HIPAA, which require appropriate safeguards for protected health information. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for data security and user privacy. Disabling all security features to simplify access and improve user experience is a gross negligence of security responsibilities. This directly contravenes all relevant U.S. data protection laws and standards, exposing the organization to severe penalties, reputational damage, and potential legal action. It represents a complete failure to implement necessary safeguards. Implementing access controls solely based on user requests without any validation or risk assessment is haphazard and insecure. This approach can lead to unauthorized access to sensitive data, as it bypasses the critical step of determining if the requested access is necessary and appropriate. It fails to adhere to the due diligence required by regulatory frameworks, which expect a structured and documented approach to access management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach access control implementation by first understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to their organization's data. This involves identifying sensitive data types and the regulatory requirements for their protection, e.g., HIPAA for health data, PCI DSS for payment card data, or general NIST guidelines for federal systems. A comprehensive risk assessment is the next crucial step, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities. Based on this assessment, a policy of least privilege should be established, defining roles and the minimum access required for each. Technology solutions, such as Cisco ISE, should then be configured to enforce these policies dynamically, considering user identity, device posture, and context. Regular audits and reviews of access logs are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to detect any anomalies or policy violations. This systematic, risk-based, and policy-driven approach ensures both security and compliance. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire for streamlined user access to sensitive network resources, but concerns have been raised regarding the potential for over-provisioning of privileges. Considering the regulatory landscape for data security and privacy in the United States, which of the following approaches best balances operational efficiency with compliance requirements for implementing Cisco secure access solutions? Option A. Deploy a solution that relies solely on technical best practices for access control, assuming that adherence to industry standards will automatically satisfy regulatory obligations. Option B. Focus on immediate technical implementation to meet the demand for faster access, deferring detailed regulatory compliance checks to a later phase. Option C. Prioritize user convenience by granting broad access privileges to commonly used resources, with a plan to address any compliance gaps retrospectively. Option D. Implement granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, ensuring comprehensive logging and regular audits to verify compliance with relevant U.S. federal regulations. The correct answer is D. Implement granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, ensuring comprehensive logging and regular audits to verify compliance with relevant U.S. federal regulations. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing robust security controls with the operational needs and privacy expectations of users and stakeholders. Difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulatory framework, which in the context of the 300-208 exam implies adherence to U.S. federal regulations governing data privacy and security, such as HIPAA for healthcare data or NIST guidelines for federal agencies and contractors. The pressure to quickly implement a solution without fully understanding the compliance implications can lead to missteps. Professionals must navigate the technical requirements of Cisco secure access solutions, while ensuring that the chosen implementation aligns with legal obligations and ethical considerations regarding data handling and user access. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of applicable U.S. federal regulations and Cisco's best practices for secure access implementation. This means understanding the specific requirements for data classification, access control policies, logging, and auditing, as mandated by regulations like HIPAA, if patient data is involved, or NIST SB 800-53 for federal systems. Implementing granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, ensuring comprehensive logging for audit trails, and establishing clear data retention policies are all critical components that directly address regulatory mandates. This approach prioritizes compliance, minimizes legal and reputational risk, and builds trust with stakeholders by demonstrating a commitment to responsible data stewardship. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution solely based on perceived technical best practices without explicit consideration of regulatory mandates is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks noncompliance, leading to potential fines, legal action, and damage to the organization's reputation. For instance, if the organization handles protected health information, failing to implement access controls that comply with HIPAA security rule regarding access authorization and audit controls would be a direct violation. Prioritizing user convenience over security and compliance is another critical failure. A user experience is important. It cannot supersede legal requirements. For example, implementing overly broad access privileges to simplify user workflows without proper risk assessment and justification could violate data protection principles and lead to unauthorized access or data breaches, which are strictly prohibited under various U.S. federal privacy laws. Focusing only on the immediate technical implementation without establishing ongoing monitoring and auditing mechanisms is also problematic. Regulations often require continuous assessment and verification of security controls. A set it and forget it mentality ignores the dynamic nature of threats and the need for adaptive security postures, leaving the organization vulnerable to evolving risks and noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach that integrates regulatory compliance from the outset of any security solution implementation. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable U.S. federal regulations and industry-specific compliance frameworks relevant to the organization's data and operations. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to understand potential threats and vulnerabilities in relation to these regulations. 3. Designing and implementing security controls, including access management, that directly address identified risks and regulatory requirements, adhering to the principle of least privilege. 4. Establishing robust logging, monitoring, and auditing processes to ensure continuous compliance and detect potential violations. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating security policies and procedures to adapt to new threats and changes in regulatory landscapes. 6. Engaging with legal and compliance teams to ensure all technical decisions are aligned with legal obligations. Question 19. The control framework reveals a requirement to implement access controls for sensitive customer data within a European Union-based organization. The organization must ensure that access is granted only to individuals who have a legitimate business need, that the data processed is adequate, relevant, and not excessive, and that access is logged for audit purposes. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of data protection as mandated by the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR? Option A. Grant broad access to all customer data for all employees within the sales and marketing departments, as they are most likely to interact with customers. Option B. Utilize a single, shared administrator account for all IT personnel to manage customer data access, with minimal logging to reduce administrative overhead. Option C. Implement access controls based on user tenure, granting full access to customer data to employees who have been with the company for over 2 years, regardless of their specific role. Option D. Implement role-based access control (RBAC), where user roles are precisely defined to grant access only to the specific data fields necessary for their job functions, coupled with comprehensive and time-bound access logging. The correct answer is D. Implement role-based access control (RBAC), where user roles are precisely defined to grant access only to the specific data fields necessary for their job functions, coupled with comprehensive and time-bound access logging. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in implementing secure access solutions, balancing robust security with user productivity and operational efficiency, all while adhering to specific regulatory mandates. In this scenario, the challenge lies in interpreting and applying the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR principles to a technical access control implementation. The organization must ensure that data access is not only secure, but also lawful, fair, and transparent, with clear limitations on data processing and retention. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly aligns with GDPR core tenets of data minimization, purpose limitation, and accountability. By implementing role-based access control (RBAC) that strictly maps user roles to the minimum data necessary for their job functions, the organization adheres to data minimization. Furthermore, by ensuring that access logs are detailed and retained for a defined period, it supports accountability and auditability, crucial for demonstrating compliance. This approach proactively addresses potential data breaches and unauthorized access by limiting the attack surface and providing a clear audit trail. An incorrect approach that grants broad access based on departmental affiliation, without granular role mapping, fails to uphold the principle of data minimization. This increases the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive personal data by individuals who do not require it for their legitimate duties, violating GDPR Article 5(1)(c). Another incorrect approach that neglects to implement or regularly review access logs, or retains them indefinitely without a defined purpose, also presents regulatory failures. Indefinite retention without a clear legal basis or business need can be seen as a violation of data minimization and storage limitation principles, GDPR Article 5(1)(e). Finally, an approach that prioritizes user convenience over security and compliance by implementing weak authentication mechanisms or bypassing necessary access controls directly contravenes the GDPR requirement for appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure data security, GDPR Article 32. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, such as GDPR. This involves identifying specific articles and principles relevant to access control. Next, they must assess the organization's data landscape and identify sensitive personal data. The implementation should then be designed to align with these principles, prioritizing least privilege and purpose limitation. Regular audits and reviews are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to evolving threats and regulatory interpretations. Question 20. Governance review demonstrates that a significant number of vulnerabilities have been identified across the network infrastructure. To address these findings efficiently and effectively within the scope of implementing Cisco's secure access solutions, which approach to remediation planning is most aligned with robust risk management principles and regulatory expectations? Option A. Prioritize remediation efforts based on a quantitative risk assessment that factors in the likelihood of exploitation and the potential business impact of each vulnerability. Option B. Focus remediation efforts on vulnerabilities that are easiest and quickest to fix, irrespective of their risk level. Option C. Implement a broad, sweeping security policy change that attempts to mitigate all potential vulnerabilities simultaneously without a specific prioritization. Option D. Address all identified vulnerabilities in the order they were discovered, regardless of their severity or potential impact. The correct answer is A. Prioritize remediation efforts based on a quantitative risk assessment that factors in the likelihood of exploitation and the potential business impact of each vulnerability. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cybersecurity governance, balancing the need for comprehensive risk assessment with the practical constraints of resource allocation and the dynamic nature of threats. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to address identified vulnerabilities within the scope of the 300-208 Implementing Cisco Secure Access Solutions exams implied regulatory framework, which emphasizes a structured and evidence-based approach to security. The correct approach involves prioritizing remediation efforts based on a quantitative risk assessment that considers both the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the potential impact on the organization. This aligns with best practices in risk management, which advocate for data-driven decision-making to ensure that limited resources are directed towards the most critical risks. This methodology is often implicitly or explicitly supported by various cybersecurity frameworks and regulatory guidelines that mandate a risk-based approach to security controls, ensuring that investments are proportionate to the identified risks and that compliance obligations are met efficiently. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the number of vulnerabilities identified without considering their severity or potential impact. This is professionally unacceptable because it can lead to misallocation of resources, addressing low-risk issues while neglecting critical ones. It fails to meet the spirit of regulatory requirements that demand a pragmatic and effective security posture, not just a superficial reduction in vulnerability counts. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize remediation based on the ease of implementation without regard for the actual risk posed. This can result in quick fixes that do not materially improve the organization's security posture and may leave significant risks unaddressed, violating the principle of due diligence expected in security management. Finally, ignoring the risk assessment entirely and proceeding with a blanket remediation strategy without a clear understanding of the threat landscape or business impact is a failure of professional responsibility and a direct contravention of risk management principles mandated by most compliance regimes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the organization's assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. This understanding should then be translated into a structured risk assessment process, ideally a quantitative one, to assign a risk score to each identified vulnerability. This score should inform a prioritized remediation plan, ensuring that the most significant risks are addressed first. Regular review and reassessment of risks are crucial to adapt to evolving threats and organizational changes, ensuring continuous improvement in the security posture.